And now we come to the most important part of the event. BNI members, I know that this is the president script la anpinchundachu. But then now we've been waiting for this man to come onto the stage and mesmerize us for about maybe an hour or so. Are you excited?
Yes.
So Jonty, I always wanted to share this with you. In fact, there was a time that I have seen that great catch of yours when Sachin Tendulkar got out because of your wonderful catch. I was in big confusion whether I have to be happy or sad because our god of cricket was gone at that point of moment, but it was brilliant fielding from your side. I was super confused, but I chose the later one. I enjoyed your catch. Thank you so much for such kind of wonderful legendary act on the cricket field.
He's changed the fielding routine.
Absolutely. A lot of us, in fact even me as a cricket lover, we didn't even know there is something called fielding also exists in that game called cricket before this man.
Distinct honor to introduce our esteemed chief guest for this special occasion. Hailing from South Africa, Mr. Jonty is a cricketing legend whose name is etched in the annals of sporting history. Jonty Rhodes is a living legend whose achievements transcend the boundaries of cricket. His illustrious career has not only redefined the fielding aspect of the game, but also served as an inspiration to the countless aspiring cricketers worldwide. Known for his electric presence on the field, Jonty's diving saves and jaw-dropping catches became the gold standard for fielding excellence. Beyond his remarkable fielding abilities, Mr. Jonty showcased exceptional prowess as a batsman, contributing significantly to the success of the South African cricket team. His determination, sportsmanship, and unwavering dedication to the game continue to inspire countless cricketers and fans worldwide. Beyond his on-field heroics, Jonty's sportsmanship and humility have earned him admiration both on and off the cricket pitch. His dedication to fair play, respect for opponents, and unwavering commitment to the spirit of the game make him a true role model for all of us. As our esteemed chief guest, Jonty Rhodes brings with him wealth of experience, knowledge and wisdom. His presence today promises to elevate the significance of this event, and we are incredibly privileged to have the opportunity to listen to his insights and stories from his remarkable journey. So friends, without much ado, let us give a standing ovation to the incomparable and the one and only Mr. Jonty Rhodes.
Namaskaram, Vizag. Namaskaram. So good to be back in Vizag, Visakhapatnam. For a long time I worked with Mumbai Indians, and in the days when it was Deccan Chargers, I used to love coming here, because I'm probably more Indian than most of you. I really am. I mean, I am the father of India, you know that. Yeah, my daughter's name is India, I made it quite easy. Yes, thank you. I studied marketing at school and at university. I'm no fool. As soon as I named my daughter India, rankings and popularity went right up. So smart. Business. Something that I was always pretty good at. But when I would come here with Mumbai Indians and we used to play against Deccan in those days, we would stay here in Vizag and I'd get on the Royal Enfield and I'd ride out on the beach road to Rushikonda Beach and have a surf, like all of you, right? You all like to surf here in the ocean? No? Told you I was more Indian than you. But very happy to be back here in Vizag because, firstly, it's very similar to my home in Cape Town. We have the ocean in front of us and we have some small hills behind us. One is very flat, very popular in Cape Town, but very, very similar. So good to be here. The difference is though, in Cape Town right now, it's 12 or 13 degrees only. So please excuse if I have to rush here, have a drink, blow my nose. We're all getting the flu back again in Cape Town. So a change of weather is quite severe. So please, if I do sound like I'm running away or turning my back, I really am not. I just want to make this interesting and exciting and understandable. Okay, so it's amazing to see everybody here. It really is. And it was interesting when you come in, when I drove in, while you were seated here going through your networking, just reading about the together, a really big emphasis on doing this together. And it's quite similar in a way to a cricket team. Because if you think about cricket as a sport, it is a team game. But the entire time, it rests heavily on the individual. So if I'm and thank you for the picture, that's me batting. Nothing in the highlights, not a single in that video montage, not a single shot being played by Jonty, just catching, stopping. Yeah, I used to bat too. Just remember that. But when you're playing in a cricket field, it's you batting versus the bowler. Or if you are a bowler, which fortunately I wasn't, it's you versus the batter. Sure, it's a team environment, but the individual's performance is very, very important. So how then, in a team environment, can we enjoy the success of the other people around us? Is it possible? So too often if we're in a business environment, we're worried about profitability. We're worried about if we have people working for us, what their salaries are, can we retain people? But we need a bigger purpose in business, to play together, to work together. Because it really is important that you do enjoy the success of the people around you. Because that makes for a sustainable growth in your business and in your network. If you're just in it for the runs that I'm scoring or the wickets that I'm taking, it's your rise or your profitability is very short-lived. But how do you sustain that? And it really is, in a business environment, it is about enjoying the success of the people around you. So well done for being here today, well done for being a part of BNI. I think please give yourselves a round of applause. And you'll be glad to know I do have a stainless steel kitchen at my home. So I'm no fool, huh? Doesn't matter what it looks like. Okay, so on this theme of togetherness, teamwork. How does a cricket team play to win individually and as a team? Well, the interesting thing was in 1992, I started my cricket career. Now that's a long, long time ago. In 1992, started my international cricket career at the World Cup in Australia. Now up until that stage, South Africa was still not yet a democracy. We were still run by the apartheid minority white government who suppressed anybody else in South Africa that didn't look like me, basically. So we were invited, Cricket Board of India, BCCI, invited South Africa on a tour of India in September 1991. And from that tour, the doors were then opened. It's not like the BCCI has any influence on the ICC, let's face it. Not much. No, not much. Doors were opened and the South African team got invited to play in that World Cup in 1992. Now to put things in perspective, our state cricket, which we were all playing at that stage, that was the highest level that we could achieve. There was no country to play for. South Africa had economic and sporting sanctions, rightfully so, put on the country to try and get them to change away from this apartheid regime. So we had no international experience whatsoever when we came to India firstly, and then my first match at the World Cup in Australia in 1992. Now, we played our first opening game. Our opening game was against the Australians, who were hosts with New Zealand, but defending champions at the SCG, the Sydney Cricket Ground, which has a capacity in those, that had a capacity in those days of about 35,000 people. Well, saying people, there was about 34,000 Australians, so saying people is very generous. You will see the Australian team, they do a little bit of something called sledging. Well, the cricket players actually learn it from the crowd. They really do. The crowd are amazing with sledging. Sometimes you hear this voice saying, Jonty this, Jonty that, and you can hardly see a little kid, his head is popping over, but he's just repeating what his father has said, sitting next to him. So playing against Australia, we knew was going to be a very tough game at the SCG. Our first match, instead of playing in front of 5,000 spectators, or 6,000 spectators from our state cricket, we were now playing in front of 30,000 people, and also being televised around the globe. And let's face it, I know there's 1.3 billion people in India, and there's a lot more everywhere around the world. So whenever cricket is played, it's not just in the country that's hosting that there's a popular following. Cricket is certainly beamed around the world, and a lot of people are watching, especially at the World Cup. So all of us were very nervous. And the captain of the South African team, Conclave, he had actually immigrated from South Africa to Australia during those years of apartheid, because he knew he could not play cricket for South Africa, so he went and gained Australian citizenship, and he knew how difficult and how tough it would be on the field, that first match for South Africa versus Australia. So what he did, he got a rugby coach. Now rugby is a sport that's very popular in South Africa, very popular in New Zealand, Australia, England, but it was a game where the Australian rugby coach had just been axed, just been fired by the Australian rugby board, and Kepler Wessels knew him quite well. So Kepler asked him to please come and talk to us as a South African team to try and give us some, not motivation, but just ways to counter this nervousness that we were all surely going to be facing the next day when we walked out onto the field in front of these 30-odd thousand Australians, and in our first game ever at a Cricket World Cup representing South Africa. And it was interesting for me because after about an hour of him speaking, I left the room, the team room that we were in, and spoke to a few of my fellow teammates, and everybody took something different out of his conversation that resonated with them. With me, I had one thing. And remember, he was talking about how do you not be nervous for the first time at a World Cup match. And the one thing that resonated, that stuck with me, was that he said, the only way you can overcome that nervousness or that apprehension, doing something totally out of your comfort zone, is that every minute of the game, just think, what can I do for the team in the next 60 seconds? What can I do for the team in the next 60 seconds? And ask yourself that every minute of the game. So basically, you take away the focus on your own performance. Because no matter if you're running a business, if you're batting at number 5 or 6, or if you're fielding a backward point, it still is a team environment where all of us contribute to that success. If somebody's making tea in the office, somebody's cleaning the office, it's about everybody in that team contributing. And like I said, the most important part of that was enjoying the success of the people around you, so important. And think of a batter like myself. Yep, that's me batting. Okay, I got dropped for 2 years from the test team because the run down to third man in the days of no power play, no T20 cricket was a good shot to play in limited overs cricket because I had good speed. So I could run back between the wickets, touch and go, and come back for 2. But when you're playing test cricket, that run down to third man usually goes to second or third slip, so it wasn't a very good skill to have. So I got dropped for 2 years from the test team, and I had to fix my technique and come back in. But the whole time that I was in there was always support from all my teammates. So whether I was being a middle order batter, or being a fielder, or being the 12th man, I didn't sit there and sulk in the dressing room when I wasn't playing. My goal was to be the best 12th man in the world. Because I had to ensure that my teammates, even though I wasn't in the playing 11, that my teammates had everything that they needed to be successful. And often you think that, well, it's to my own detriment. Because surely if I want to get back in the team, I can't afford to have the players who are batting at number 5 and number 6 being successful, because that keeps me out the side. But my goal and my role as a 12th man was to be the best 12th man in the world. Because I understood that what can I do for the team in the next 60 seconds? It's important for everybody to be thinking about that and to be acknowledging everything that's done in the team and in the environment, especially in your business environment. Okay, so that's the first lesson that I learned on the cricket field. The second lesson, and it's a part of, it really is a part of life, whether you're in business or whether you're on the sports field. Probably the most important lesson that I'd ever learned was that change takes place constantly. It is all around us. And if it's not happening on your desk, in your office, in your business, it's happening in your network. It's happening with your clients, with your partnerships. It's happening everywhere all the time. And I mean, there's been some interesting changes in the Indian economy over the last 6-7 years. I remember landing in India the day or the night that demonetization was at 12 o'clock, middle of the night. I landed with a wallet full of rupees that were no longer legal tender. And that was the introduction of demonetization to me, and I know it affected a lot of the businesses that are seated here. Then tax that's been added. You know, we always had VAT, value-added tax in South Africa, and GST, so we were pretty accustomed to that. But there are so many changes taking place, and a lot of the changes are out of your control. And I've seen teams, I've seen captains and leaders handle change in 3 different ways. One is that they turn their back and say, no, this is not for us. Baseball is not the way we play cricket. England can have it. Baseball is not for us. Okay, so they look at change and they say, no, we are not going there. The second way you can handle change as a business, as an individual, as a team, is that you embrace the change. And you think, wow, they've been successful, let's do that. Let's do that. Whatever they are doing, let's us bring that into our organization, into our team. And the problem with embracing change, it is a step forward in the right direction for sure. But when you embrace change only, you're keeping up with the opposition. Because they're already one step ahead. So the third way to handle change, and the way to stay ahead of the competition, whether it's in a team or a business, is to innovate and be the change in your industry. Be the change in your environment. And it's interesting, because change doesn't have to be, innovation doesn't have to be something that nobody's ever heard of before. It wasn't gifted when you were in the temple, and a seed of thought has come out all the time. Sometimes it does happen. You think of my fielding. Oh no, that's my batting, sorry. Don't think of my batting, not too exciting. Think of my fielding. I mean, people had been fielding before, right? Before I came on the scene in 1992. People were fielding. Sometimes it was, oh, there's a ball, throw it back. Using their foot. Most teams had 10 fielders plus a wicket keeper. So you can't say me fielding was innovative or something totally new that no one had ever done before. Fielding was a part of the game, just not a very important part of the game. So sometimes innovation is doing something slightly different to what you're currently doing. Everyone thinks that T20 cricket has changed the way the game is played. Sure, it has. It certainly has. But for me, in 1996 at the World Cup, cricket was changed forever. Do you remember the World Cup in 1996? Co-hosted India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka. Who won the World Cup in 96? Sri Lanka. Why did they win? Sanath, Ramesh, Kaluutarana. I'm not a very tall guy, even on the stage, I'm not, which is why they gave me a very low table, in case I was standing behind it. Okay, you're probably not going to see me from behind the table. But Kalu and Sanath were two of the shortest guys in world cricket. I could put my arms around them and I'd be head and shoulder above them. But they were given instruction at that World Cup. And think about 50 over cricket has changed for sure. Power plays, everything has changed. And the T20 cricket, we see it in Test cricket even. But in that 1996 World Cup, you had the same opening batters in the 50 over team as you had in the Test team. So Kepler Wessels, Andrew Hudson, Gary Kirsten, these are names that used to open the batting for the South African team in the Tests and 50 overs. Because that was the style of play in limited overs cricket. Okay, you lay a foundation. You bat for the first 10 or 12 overs, maybe 3 runs an over, but maximum 1 wicket down. Then the middle overs were guys like me. Okay, run hard, keep the ball on the ground, less risk, but going at 5, 6 and over. Bad ball comes, hit for 4, but run well between the wickets. That was the middle over. And then the last 10 overs of the game. Then you could score as many runs as possible. So by keeping wickets in hand at the beginning and through the middle, you could then try and bash the ball, and the last 10 overs maybe score 70 or 80 runs, which was big in those days. That gets you to a total of around 200 in a 50 over match. 200 was often a winning score. In Sri Lanka, they had played in the World Cup in 1992, our first World Cup, and they had come bottom. We had got to the semi-final. Sri Lanka came bottom with Zimbabwe of the 9 teams. And they got to the 96 World Cup and just said, if we keep doing what we were doing in 92, how is that going to change anything? How are the results going to change? So what they decided was telling Sanath and Kalu, you go out and you see the ball, go open the batting. If you see it, you hit it. It doesn't matter where it goes. Sanath was trying to hit the ball over long off, it would fly over third man for 6, or over cover or point for 6. Slashing bat. Kalu was the same. Pull anything. Cut anything. Hit over the top. Because what we were doing was trying to build a foundation of 15, as I said, first 15 overs, go at 3 and over. So 45 to 50, 1 wicket down. Sri Lankans were looking for close to 100. They wanted between 85 and 90. If they lost 3 wickets, they said not a problem. Because every other team consolidated in those middle overs. So you got Aravinda, Arjuna. They're not going to run too fast between the wickets, but they can certainly manipulate the ball and get off strike. So they had the senior players to maintain that. They lost 3 wickets up front, but they took the game away from the opposition. So again, it's the same thing about, and the rest of us were now looking for pinch hitters. We would send in Pat Simcox, Sean Pollock, go hit the ball. But technically they weren't as good from a batting point of view. Yes, maybe 1 or 2 shots, but no consistency in that performance. So Sri Lankans changed the way the game was played. So again, they were innovative. They didn't start using new equipment. It wasn't a bat made out of aluminium. It was the same equipment that all of us used. Just their approach, their thought process was innovative. Okay, and after that World Cup in 1996, Hansi Cronje and Bob Wilmer were the coach and the captain of the South African team. And we decided we wanted to be an innovative team. If you think of an idea, bring it to practice, let's try it. Other than Herschel Gibbs, because Herschel Gibbs, he wasn't much of a thinker. So Herschel Gibbs was talking, we all just kept quiet and said, no, Herschel, you do that, that's fine. Great guy, Herschel, great fielder, great batter, but not too serious. So we were playing in the World Cup in 1999, and for those 4 years from 97, well, it was 3.5 because it was in England, it was a World Cup in 99. Everyone remember 99 World Cup? Yes, we'll come back to that semi-final later. But our first game was against India at the Hove. Now, summer in England is, well, you can call it summer. But it was a really cold day. It's at the coast, and everybody's wearing 2 jumpers because it's a cold day. But Bob Wilmer had been watching American football on television. And he saw the coaches with headphones and speakers talking to other coaches in the top of the stands, talking to people on the side, and even to the leaders on the team, the captains on the team. They had communication between on the field and visually. They could see what was going on. Because often when you are the leader, when you're the captain or the business leader, and you are at the coalface, it's quite difficult to see the bigger picture. Sometimes we need input. Okay, leadership, captaincy is not about I am the captain, you will listen. I have a father who is a principal, he's in his 80s, he was a school headmaster for many, many years. So I know all about you will do this and you will do that. Discipline was a very big part of the South African schooling education system. And Kepler Wessels was very similar to that. You'll do this and you'll do that. And not only will you do this, this is how you will do it. But Hansi and Bob Wilmer were a really good coach leadership combination. They encourage people, come with ideas, play it your way. We picked you for your skill, you play to your strengths. So anyway, Bob Wilmer watched this on television and he saw the communication between the coach and the players on the field, and the coach and people who had a bigger picture at all times. So Bob said to Hansi, you know, Hansi, I've been thinking about something, and I've been looking at the rules of cricket, because it involves a communication device, which was similar to an earpiece that fitted into Hansi's ear and was one-way communication. So Bob was able to speak to Hansi. Hansi could not speak to Bob. And it wasn't for Bob to give Hansi instruction. It was for Bob to give Hansi a different perspective on the field. So at first game against India, Hansi is now wearing the earpiece. But because Bob Wilmer studied the rules, the law book of cricket, I think 1820, cricket rule book was drawn up. So obviously nothing there about communication devices in 1820. So Bob Wilmer, being the man of ethics that he was, he just said, you know, Hansi, it's not in the rule books, but, you know, I'm not too sure, so maybe put a piece of plaster over your ear so they can't see what's in your ear. So unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, because then a ball wasn't bowled, but Alan Donald, remember Alan Donald? Yeah, pretty quick. He had the war paint on his face. But he was opening the bowling that day. He wanted that communication device, and it came in a set of two, because he was a gadget freak. He grew up in a very small town in South Africa, very small. So for him, gadgets were a part of now, to show that he's landed. He's now in mainstream. So he saw the other hearing device, and he took it into his ear. And now usually my job was to get the cap, take it to the umpire, so the bowler could walk straight to his mark. But the first over of the game, Alan Donald comes to the umpire, takes his cap off, takes his two sweaters off, and he digs in his ear like this, scratches around, and he pulls out this little brown blob on the end of his finger. And the umpire went, whoa, Alan Donald, that is disgusting. Don't you South Africans bath or shower? What is that? It looked like dirt on the end of his big lump of dirt. And he said, no, it's my communication device. So Bob Wilmer can speak to me. Sorry, before we get to hear what Bob Wilmer said. Thank you. Sorry, I did warn you, eh? Okay, so Bob Wilmer was supposed to now advise Alan Donald, but Alan Donald just wanted it because he's a gadget freak. So the umpires got their communication device. They called Mr. Clive Lloyd, who was the match referee. And they said, Mr. Lloyd, by this time Hansi had walked over, and he showed them his communication device. Mr. Lloyd, the South Africans have communication devices. Can we continue? Are they allowed to play with these? I beg your pardon. So Clive Lloyd went through the same law book, 1820, nothing there about communication devices, but he said, Hansi, you're not breaking the laws of the game, but in his mind, it's against the spirit of the game, because nobody else has communication devices. And we went, but of course, that's the whole point. We're trying to be innovative. We know it's not breaking the rules. If nobody else has thought about it, why should we be penalized? But yeah, there's different ways to do it. The flow, we can change and keep going. But I think a key lesson for me was when I worked for Standard Bank in South Africa. So I'd retired from cricket, and I worked as a business banker. I have, as I said, a Bachelor of Commerce and a marketing degree. And at the end of that year of working in the bank, you get a report card. And there's nothing worse when you've got, you know, tick here, and then there's a cross. You didn't quite achieve the goals or the targets that have been set for you in a business environment. And the same thing when you're playing cricket. But when it comes, because let's face it, I mean, all of us have egos, whether you are playing international cricket, whether you're running your own business, if you're working in an organization, we all have egos. Okay, and that's not a bad thing. It's what motivates and drives us to get up in the morning to go out and be successful in whatever our chosen field might be. But the big issue we have is that because of these egos, sometimes We don't want to get out of our comfort zones. We don't want to do something slightly different. I spoke about innovation, or doing something that you're doing slightly differently. Because when you're doing things that you're good at, or you know you can achieve, that's fine. You're working. And that's often just keeping up with the opposition. But how do you go beyond? How do you become a champion team? How do you become a champion business? And that freedom to fail is vital. I had a mantra. Freedom to fail is vital if you're going to succeed. Nobody likes to fail, like I said. But if you go out on the cricket field and you're worried about dropping catches, you're going to drop a catch. If you're worried about getting out, you are going to get out. It happens. But if the mindset is negative, when you go onto the field, you're already in trouble. Okay, because when you're playing cricket and the ball's coming at 140 kilometers or it's turning, I don't know what the degrees, 30 degrees. In my case, I was sweeping it anyway, whether it was coming at 140 or turning, because that for me as a hockey player was a shot I could play. But in the field, I would dive for the ball. Sometimes stop it, sometimes catch it, sometimes drop it, sometimes miss it. But the important lesson for me was, if I would go for the ball and stop it, lovely. Thanks. If you would dive for the ball and drop it, I was actually okay with that as a fielding coach. And as a player, I was okay with and it would upset me because I prided myself in having done the work and worked hard and been a good fielder. I really prided myself in that. But the key from that point of view was that I would rather go for the ball and drop it than sit at the end of the day in the dressing room and think, that ball that came past me, that went for a boundary, if I had dived for it, could I have stopped it? If I had dived. And my teammates, you can imagine, when you travel the world for 8 to 9 months of the year with 16 to 17 men who are actually really boys, getting paid to do what you love to do, don't have to grow up too much. We were quite, we had a few nicknames of each other and we would give each other a hard time. And often, one of my nicknames was the Indian Rubber Man. Specifically Indian Rubber Man. And not because I was promoting safe sex in India, not with that kind of rubber. But when you dive for the ball in the field, I would bounce back up to my feet, ready to throw. Because I worked out that the longer you spend on the ground, the more layers of skin you lose from your elbows and your hips and your knees. So dive for the ball, ready to throw. But my teammates also would say to me, Jonty, that's a TV dive. I'd say, what do you mean what is a TV dive? And for them, they felt a TV dive was when I would dive for the ball and I wasn't even close to it. So it was still a meter away, having dived, and I was never going to catch it or stop it. My teammates would say, you're trying to make us look bad, because look at you. You're bleeding, you're dirty. And your mother's sitting at home saying, look at Jonty, isn't he wonderful, my boy? He's diving around. Nobody else has even got dirty knees or dirty elbows. And they keep saying, Jonty, that's a TV dive. But as I said, that for me, failure was standing there watching the ball go past. Because often we're asking for opportunities, aren't we? We just need one opportunity. But often that opportunity is there and it's already gone past. If you're asking or looking for opportunities. For me, it was a case of being ready before the ball was hit. Watching the bigger picture. If Sachin went to defend, I was coming in for the quick single. If Sachin went to cut, I was ready to take it anywhere, low and hard. So asking for opportunity is one thing, or looking for an opportunity is one thing. But being prepared and ready for that opportunity before it comes is way more important. And that's why I could catch Sachin Tendulkar and the ball looked like it bounced, it didn't bounce. I remember that catch because I'm reminded of it every single time I come back to India. I'm reminded about Jonty Rhodes catching Sachin Tendulkar in Durban, and the ball did not bounce. Okay, Sachin and I are pretty tight, we're good friends, and he was quite happy that he saw the ball carry. And I keep saying, just because an Indian fielder couldn't dive and catch it, doesn't mean a South African player couldn't dive and catch it. Okay, so remember that freedom to fail is vital if you are going to succeed. It doesn't mean doing things that are totally out of your realm of where your business lies or what you're passionate about, but it's being prepared to get out of that comfort zone and take your business and yourself to the next level, and the people around you, don't forget, because we're in this together. Okay, so change you spoke about, important. Freedom to fail, very important. Okay, but the one way that freedom to fail for me was, I was allowed to fail, was because I practiced, not hard, because we all work hard. And in cricket, and I coach at the IPL, players work really hard. It's the hottest time of the year in India. That March, April, or April, May, and into June is the hottest time of the year. And the guys are out there, not just in the game, but in the nets every day, 3 hours, every single day. We as coaches have to lock their doors. You can't come to practice today. Stay there, rest. It's just as important as practice. They want to practice and get better, which is amazing. But for us, it's a case of going, okay, 3 hours in the sun, how do we practice smarter, not necessarily harder? Everybody's working hard, wants to be successful. And something got drummed into me as a young boy by my father, the schoolmaster, the headmaster, was that, Jonty, people will tell you, coaches will tell you, teachers will tell you, that it's practice that makes perfect. You've heard that? Practice makes perfect? He said, no, that is only half the story. Because it's perfect practice that makes perfect. Okay, so think of the difference. So, because he was the principal of the school, and he had 3 sons at the school. I'm one of 3 boys. I'm the middle son. And we were all keen on our sport. My father never wanted to be accused of influencing team selection, especially. We know what it's like choosing cricket teams. So he coached the 9-year-old, the first year, 8-year-old, 9-year-old kids at the school. And he said, Jonty, watch these boys. They come down for 2.5, 3 hours. They have a great time. They think they are learning skills, but they're not really. They're just having fun. They're out there sweating like crazy. And like I said, at the IPL, it's the hottest time of the year. You wake up and you walk outside and you are dripping with sweat. Doesn't mean you're working hard. And for him, my father was all about, it's 10 minutes of high intensity, practicing like you're in a match situation. Because firstly, it also puts pressure. There's nothing like pressure of a game compared to pressure in practice. There's no pressure in practice. You can get out when you're batting. You can bowl one bad ball, you can bowl another one. Pull it back. So that intensity, that match intensity, was an important part of my practicing. And that's why, again, that freedom to fail I had. Because I would dive for the ball. You never know what's going to happen. And at practice, I've taken a few of those catches as well. So I know that if I get a hand in the right area, close to the ball, there's a good chance that I could actually hold on to it. And the way that my father literally drummed the lesson to us, as a school principal in South Africa, now this is in the 80s, he was allowed to, he had a small latte, so a small cane, is that the right word? Latte? Small cane. Whippy cane. About so long. And if the boys were naughty, he was a principal of a 600 boys school. Not a big, decent school, but from age 8 to 13. 12 and a bit, 13. So you can imagine, anybody have children here? Yeah. Okay, anybody have, not as old as me, obviously, none of you, young people. Okay, so 8 and 12-year-old boys, lots of energy, sometimes a little naughty. So my father was allowed, had permission from the governing body and from the education department. If a boy overstepped the line, and the rules were very profound and clear. The boy overstepped the line, he could get 1 lash from the cane, that latte. He could come to the office, get a hiding. Now if he was a bit more than just a little naughty, he could get 2. Really naughty boy would get 3 lashes with that latte. Now my father was entitled by law to discipline boys in that manner in South Africa. And he would have a lashing and then the boy would leave and my father, no problem. We start again until I see you back in my office. But he knew that some of the mothers would not be very happy with Mr. Rhodes giving her son 2 or 3 hiding or lashes. father, what did he do? So he knew that with that lathi, if he, and I said he drummed the perfect practice makes perfect into us as school kids, as cricket players, as youngsters, that he knew that if he could get the lashings all in one line, then there's just X stripe. Because the lash would leave a stripe across your bottom. So my father, what he would do at home is he would practice. Exactly that. So anybody broke a window when we were playing cricket in the garden? Come here, all three boys. Everyone get a hiding. No discussion. Anybody fighting, the younger brother's crying, everybody come here. Three boys, everyone get a hiding. But never one, because that's one stripe anyway. Always two, which is why I have a very strong built-in cushion. Because my father would always give us two. Because at the end of the day, if you could go tuck, tuck, on the same stripe, then there's always only one line. And the boy would come home and say, Mommy, Mr. Rhodes hit me twice today, or 3 lashings today. And she would go, what? How is that? Show me. And he would turn around and he'd pull his pants down and show his mother. And she would say, but there's only egg line. What do you mean 3? He only hit you once. So my father used that perfect practice on us boys to literally drum the lesson in. It's not about practicing longer or harder. It's about practicing like it's a match situation. Okay, so remember that. It's not practice makes perfect. It's perfect practice that makes perfect. Okay, so I've got a bit of time here for a Q&A, and I would love to have a discussion with the floor, because it's always nice to get some sort of feedback from what's happening in your environment. The last thing I always like to talk about, in India especially, because it is a big country with a large population, no matter where you are, you're always one of 1.3 billion, which in a way is incredible, that you actually hear out of 1.3 billion people who could have been here. They're not, you are. It's really amazing. The big danger is that you sit here and go, what's the point? There's 1.3 billion people, what difference am I going to make in a country that has so many people? And I like to talk about one run, the importance of one run. As a fielding coach, that's what I ask my players. Ek run. Everybody, including the wicketkeeper, you save one run. You think about that poor bowler who's bowling the last over, and he's got to defend 15. Okay, if he had 11 more runs, because everybody saved one, he's now got 26 to defend. Okay, he's a bit more relaxed. The breathing is there. It's not impossible, but everybody has saved one run. So if you dive on the boundary, it's going for a boundary, you put it back there, run 3, that egg run you saved, it's in the bag. It's for us. Very important. So, go back to that 1999 Cricket World Cup, Australia versus South Africa. Anybody remember that game? I'm actually crying thinking about that match. South Africa against Australia, 1999 Cricket World Cup at Edgbaston. Now Australia have batted first, and we bowled pretty well. We have them down to, I think, about 211 or 12. And I remember thinking, Hansi Cronje walked up the field and said, Joe, that was a good performance, but we're going to have to bat really well, because I think maybe there was 10 runs too many that they got. We had them in a bit of trouble, and they got back. Then Gary Kirsten and Herschel Gibbs opened the batting. Man, they were flowing. We were 50 without loss in no time. Shane Warne, the late great Shane Warne. He comes on, and before you know it, we're now 60 for 4. Gary Kirsten bowled, Herschel Gibbs caught, Hansi Cronje caught, so Darryl Cullinan, of course. Shane Warne just had him. One flipper, gone. So Jonty and Jacques Callis are batting. We restore, we have a good partnership, and then both of us get out, chasing this 212 or 213. But the man of the tournament, the man of the hour, Lance Klusener, comes in and he's batting at the end. And he's batting with Alan Donald. It gets down to the last over. We need 9 runs to win in the last over, but we only have egg wicket, just 1 wicket left. Donald is batting on the non-striker's end, fortunately. Klusener is facing Damien Fleming. A good bowler. Good bowler for Australia. First 2 balls, tuck, tuck, boundary, boundary. Now the scores are level. We have 4 balls to score 1 run to win the semi-final and go to our first ever ICC Cricket World Cup final. Next ball, it's a mix-up. Donald's nearly run out. Klusner sends him back. The fourth ball of the innings, still with 2 balls to go. Fleming comes, he's changed, they come over the wicket, he bowls a great Yorker. Klusner digs it out and it goes like this past the bowler. Donald goes back, he drops his bat, doesn't know where to go. Klusner runs, Australia flip it underarm, game is over. They tie the game. We didn't lose the game, but they had a superior net run rate. There was no super over then in 1999. Australia had a superior net run rate in that tournament. They went through to the final and they thrashed Pakistan. Not saying to win the World Cup, not saying we would have won the World Cup, but we would have been in our first final. Ek run. 1 run made the difference. No loss, just a tie. Then 2003, South Africa hosted the World Cup. The World Cup's coming back to India. When you guys hosted the World Cup, 2011, who won it? What kind of hosting is that? You're supposed to invite the people, come play, take the trophy and go. 1 helicopter shot later, we'll keep the trophy, thank you. South Africa. We hosted the World Cup in 2003 without a helicopter shot. We were gone in the first round. We are very good hosts. Come to South Africa, enjoy game reserves, play some great cricket and take the trophy. In 2003. Okay, but we were playing against Sri Lanka the last round. I'd broken my finger in the tournament. I was out the team, so I take no responsibility whatsoever. Playing against Sri Lanka in Durban, the rain was starting to come down. And we needed to win the game to go through to the Super 6 or Super 8, whatever they call that second group stage. Sri Lanka just needed 1 point. So they were happy with whatever the result was, as long as they didn't lose the game. Now Mark Boucher's batting with Lance Klusner again, but Klusner's not facing. Boucher's batting. And Sri Lanka know that the rain is coming, they need a wicket to get ahead. Because you remember that Duckworth-Lewis? At the end of every over, you needed this score. In fact, at the end of every ball, you needed this score. But depending on the wickets lost in the game, right? It changed. If you lost a wicket on the 4th ball, by the end of the over, it changed the score that you needed. So Mark Boucher's batting, and he hits the 5th ball for a 6. We had told him we need, say, 121. So on 115, he hits the ball for 6 with 1 more ball to go. Murali's bowling. So he defends the last ball, right-handed. He defends the last ball. He doesn't want to get out. Because at the top of the Duckworth-Lewis that they give you, the sheet that they give you, we didn't read the fine print. And in business, you know, always read the fine print. Correct? Okay, you got termites, come fix that too. But read the fine print. Alright, so it said to tie the game, we needed 121 or 127. We didn't know that until we suddenly realized, apparently they realized, the South African team, and I was watching it at home, and tried to get a message to Mark Boucher. But because the rain was coming, the umpire sent off Nicky Boyer, who was the 12th man. So he defended the last ball, thinking that's it, he's done it. He's got the score, we are through. For the Sri Lankans to go, what are these guys doing? They still need 1 more run. So we were out the tournament, 1 more run needed. Again, didn't lose the game, we tied the match. So 2 instances for South Africa where 1 run went a long way against us. This is a good story. I need water. Because there was a match in South Africa versus Australia, my favorite opposition, where Australia was 2-2 in the one-day series, 5-match series. Australia scored 434 at the Wanderers in Johannesburg. 434. I'm now working for the bank. I'm dressed in a suit and tie and slightly shorter hair. But fortunately, my days of business banking are over, and I'm the marketing manager for sponsorship. And we sponsor the white ball cricket in South Africa. So at the end of the series, as the sponsor, I'm made to hand over the trophy. But at the end of the series, there's always 3 or 4 sponsors, or 5 or 6 who are also on the podium. So I just said, these are my friends here. I said to Cricket South Africa, I don't want to be on the podium. I'd rather stand with my friends. I'll come present the trophy, which I thought I was having to give to Ricky Ponting at one stage. But South Africa win the game at 434. I can now hand it to Graham Smith. But in that game, with Australia scoring 434, Herschel Gibbs batted. He scored 175. He hit the ball everywhere. Graham Smith got 90 of 60 balls. And everywhere, the whole game, 20 overs, 30 overs, 40 overs. Tuck, boundary, 6 wicket, boundary, 6 wicket. It came down to the last over. Mark Boucher's batting, and he's on 44. But he's at the non-striker's end, and we are 8 wickets down. Brett Lee is now bowling. Brett Lee, decent bowler? Yeah? This is now 2005, 4. He's the prime of his career. He's not bowling gently. And Andrew Hall is the all-rounder. He's a bowling all-rounder, but he can bat. We need 6 runs to win this game, to seal the series. We were 2-0 up, it's now 2-2, 2-all. Mark Boucher's non-strikers. So Brett Lee bowls to Andrew Hall. He hits it for boundary, 4. So now we need only 2 runs in 5 balls, but only 2 wickets left, and it's Brett Lee. Ricky Ponting brings all the fielders in, trying to force Andrew Hall to hit over the top, which he does try to do, but he's caught at mid-on. But the players, the batters can't cross because the players are close, which means that Mackay and Tini, remember Mackay? Biggest smile in world cricket. Okay, biggest heart in world cricket from my point of view. An amazing man, amazing fast bowler. But usually when you're a commentator and there's a team and they're 9 wickets down, you talk about the number 11 batter walking to the crease. With Mackay and Tini, it was just number 11, never batter. You would never mention Mackay and Tini and batter in the same sentence. It just didn't make any sense. He was not a batter. We tried as a team, because then in those days there was only 1 coach per team. No batting, bowling, fielding coach, just a coach. So we all tried as teammates, as I said, enjoy the success of people around you. So Mackay, we tried to improve his batting, but all of us eventually gave up. So Mackay walks in. We still need 2 runs to win. Mark Boucher on non-strikers in. So Mackay is now facing Brett Lee. And luckily for us, 2 things. One, Mackay and Tini, and rightfully so, is a little bit scared of Brett Lee. And Brett Lee bowls almost the perfect leg stump Yorker. But because Mackay is so scared, he backs away. It's 145 kilometers an hour. And he managed to get a thick outside edge from leg stump to third man, where there was a fielder. Third man, fine leg, everybody else up in the ring. So now Mark Boucher's on strike. Mark Boucher then hits the winning run for 4. So Australia set 434, and no 2 test teams had ever scored over 400 in a one-day game prior to this match. Never. Sure, against associate member teams there might have been a 400 score. But this was the highest score ever achieved batting first. So obviously, an impossible target. No one had ever achieved this batting second. So Mark Boucher's winning runs. Everybody runs on the field. I'm now presenting the trophy, fortunately, to Graham Smith, the Standard Bank trophy, not to Ricky Ponting. And I'm standing, listening to the presentation before handing up, and I'm standing next to Mackay and Tini, and he's got the biggest smile on his face. And at that stage, he was the number 1 ICC ranked bowler. And he bowled his 10 overs for 90 runs. I mean, they scored 434. So it's a lot of runs scored. And I'm saying to Mackay, and I'm teasing him. I say, Mackay, why are you smiling so much? You've had the worst day in the office of any bowler of ever in your life. And here you got this big, no, just teasing, you got this big smile. And he said, no, Jonty. If it wasn't for my 1 run, we lose the game. My 1 run won us the game. I'm saying, Mackay, Herschel Gibbs, 175. Graham Smith, 90. And then it hit, literally hit me. Without Mackay's 1 run, we would never have achieved that target. It would have been, it became known as the greatest one-day game ever. And we would have come second, which is not a good position as a cricket team. You don't want to be second. It's never great. But that egg run, that 1 run, and the reason why it's an important lesson for me, because 438 is an impossible score. What's a massive mountain to achieve. And there were big contributions by great players. But that 1 run, that egg run from Mackay, was the difference between us winning and losing the game. And why it's important is that, as I said, in a population of 1.3 billion, in organizations that are big, and I've spoken to people who are part of a corporate that has lakhs of employees, not just pan-India, but globally. And in your business, you think, well, you know, when your network, what is the point of me doing something today? What difference is it going to make? There's so many people, there's so many things. It's not my job, it's somebody else's, it's the government, it's the local municipality, it's my partners, it's somebody else's job. What's the point of me getting up and actually doing that little bit extra? And I'm here to remind you that ek run makes a massive difference. Your contribution makes a huge difference, not only in your businesses, but also in your families and your communities. So just remember that one run. What can I do? And often no one even sees the one run. Everyone was talking about Herschel Gibbs 175 or Graham Smith 90. None of us saw Mackay and Tini's one run that got us across the line. Okay, so find that one run in your business. Find it, recognize it, acknowledge it. Thank that person for their contribution. And with that, I'll stop moving and I'll sit down. So I'd love to have some Q&A. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for listening to me. And I do again apologize for the throat and the nose. Great to be here.
For the man who has traveled all the way from Cape Town to here just to speak to Vishakhapatnam businessman, can we give a bigger round of applause?